I need to exactly remind you that this is being recorded and will be available on the interwebs. So don't say anything you don't want on the interwebs. We are excited to have candidates here for our annual forum. But I would also like to welcome any first-time attendees. If you've not been to an APA meeting before and you're not on the podium or whatever this is, the panel, please say hi.
Hi.
Can you tell us your name?
Oh, Liz Peter.
Liz Fader?
Peter. Peter, it's like V as in victory, double E, echo, echo, D as in Delta, echo, Romeo. Peter.
Thank you.
Yes.
Welcome. Do you have any particular issues you care about, or do you want to leave it at?
I just am excited. I just love common sense. I love to hear stuff, so
We'd like to hear you.
thank you.
Who else? Brand new? Hi.
Hi, Betty Johnson. I'm here to support that.
Wonderful. Should I make this phonetically spell your last name?
Same last name.
Any other newcomers? Hi,
Hi, Violet.
Lila, nice to see you.
Sure.
Hi, Sharon. If anybody did not sign, and
It's Jim.
hi, Jim. Good to see you. If anybody did not sign in out front, we'd love to have your name and email address. And if anybody on Zoom is new and you'd like to put your email address in the comments, that would be marvelous. We are passing around a donation basket. Thank you, Allison. That helps us pay for this space, as well as our Zoom system and email blast accounts and occasional events and so forth. Thank you for your help. We have each month, we have reports. We're going to keep them brief this month. Reports from our team leaders. If all team leaders could come up at once, please. We're going to save a minute or two by getting you all up at once. Darlon, Bruce, Mindy. Why don't we start with, do we have Kathy on Zoom?
We do.
We do. Let's start with Kathy, our healthcare team leader.
Our healthcare action team advocates for improved Medicare for all. Healthcare is a human right, not for profit. Healthcare decisions should be made by you and your doctor only, not enriching middlemen like big pharma, insurance companies, for-profit hospitals, and more. Which candidates support making healthcare affordable, accessible, and easy to understand for all Coloradans? Our team meets monthly on Zoom, second or third Saturday. Come join us. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Bruce?
Hi, everybody. You probably know the situation around the world with war is pretty dire. In Gaza, the number of people killed in Gaza is over 41,000. There's famine and polio. The latest is the unarmed American woman that was killed by IDF on the West Bank. So that's the situation. War impacts everything. It impacts our ability to protect the environment, fund our services that we need. The other announcement I have is the anti-war team is in need of more leadership. So if anyone, or you know anyone that might want to co-lead or take over the anti-war action team, let me know. We are on the corner of 52nd Wadsworth. We're doing a protest every Saturday at 10 o'clock. So if you want to join us for that, you'd be very welcome. I always like, particularly when we have public officials that are going to be dealing with budgets, just to remind me how much money we spend on war. Money for war and defense includes everything, and budget, the impact on the interest on the debt, and those types of things. The Jefferson County taxpayers send approximately $2.3 billion to our donation. And to Israel, it's $6.6 million per year.
Thank you, Bruce. Well,
I'm here to talk about the climate action team. We're on the verge of presenting our first Arvada climate action plan to city council in a couple of months, November 18th. So we had a potluck a couple of weeks ago to thank all the people that were involved as volunteers to weigh in on the climate action plan over the last couple of months. And we also had a couple of APA team members join our potluck. So it was a great event, city council public comment, please let me know. You can just talk to me after the meeting. So that's it for our update.
thank you.
I'm Allison Phipps. I am the communications team lead and the education team lead. So for communications, two quick updates. We have a 2024 election page where we'll have information on ballots, we'll have information on candidates, any of the candidates that have filled out our questionnaire. The questionnaire will be posted on that page. And there's links to all of these candidates that are here, plus any opponents that are not here, to their website and stuff. So you can find out a lot of information about the race and all the candidates that are going to be, and ballot initiatives that'll be on the ballot this November. Also, Facebook has been doing some weird things. And I've had a few people come up to me about it, deleting posts or deleting members or not letting people do certain things. It is out of my control. Have patience, I'm a volunteer. So sometimes I'm just like, I don't know, try it again, with a different link. I don't know. It's deleting certain, links to certain pages. It thinks it's spam. So that's Facebook. It's not me. And to go to the education team, the quick updates are just, there was a special session, as many of you know, and it did remove ballot initiative 50 and 108 from our ballot. That would have impacted school funding. The initiative cut taxes a little bit, property taxes a little bit, but to secure funding for schools. Hoping Brianna, Lindsay would have more information about that today, but maybe they'll show up later. And maybe again, you can I forgot, you're coming for a different thing, but Rachel. So there might be some talk about that today, but in the whole, I think probably a good thing those initiatives are off the ballot. And we'll talk next month's meeting is going to be all about ballot initiatives, so we'll dive into the ballot initiatives then. That's it.
Hello, and I just want to say hello. It looks like we have 5 or 6 people on Zoom. You can't see them, but they can see you. So, I'm Mindy Moore. I lead the Affordable Housing Team, and many of you may have heard that the city of Arvada recently purchased the closed early college of Arvada. This is on 60th, just east of Sheridan Boulevard, and they're considering using it for what's called a navigation center for helping people who are housing insecure. There'll be a community meeting that the city is leading a week from this Tuesday, September 17th, at the church right next to the early college, Simpson UMC. It'll be from 6 to 7:30. The city will be there. They'll have poster boards. People can come, leave comment cards. There'll be a question and answer session. You don't need to stay the whole time, but I really hope that folks will consider stopping by there, learning more about what is being proposed, and showing your support for those who are facing housing insecurity, our neighbors. And there's more information about that again in the weekly emails that we send out as a call to action. Thank you.
And Joseph, you're on for the part of the show here.
Part of the show. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you to our candidates and to our audience for being here at our forum today. I'm Joyce Richardson. I'm the chair of the Political Action Committee, so my report is this today. The way that this will run, and we have right now 5 candidates, hopefully 3 more show up. Each candidate will have 5 minutes to introduce themselves and tell us what their plans are if they win the election. I will call on them alphabetically, but grouped by the office that's up for election. When introductions are done, I will pose questions from the baskets that we've been collecting out there. And if you missed the opportunity to write down a question, and please print, raise your hand and Mindy will bring you a card and a pen. Candidates will have 90 seconds to answer the question that I pose to them. And I will be as fair as my memory and attention to making notes will allow about alternating people who start first. Again, this is a recorded forum. So if friends or family could not attend, you can watch the forum on YouTube, our YouTube channel.
No mics will be muted.
Pardon?
No mics will be muted.
Right, no mics will be muted.
Well, I'm out of here. I was told mics would be muted.
Well, we only have this one.
No, we have a handheld mic that we're gonna be passing.
Okay, so if you are ready to begin timers, we will start with the County Commissioner Race District 1. And Charlie Dodson, you're first because you're alphabetical.
All right. Well, thank you.
Oh, hey, if you'll come up here.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I guess some other questions.
Did we get that result?
No, it's not.
But he's going up there.
We can learn about later.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the invite. Thank you, Joyce. I've never spoken in front of this group before, so it's my pleasure to be here. I looked for you at Arvada days, and unfortunately, you weren't down there, but I talked to some of your people down there, and everybody's very lovely to me. So thanks again for the invite. My name is Charlie Johnson. I'm here in Jefferson County since 1995. I moved from New York, so I fled what I consider was bad government to come to Colorado. And I met my lovely wife Megan here. I fell in love with her as well as Colorado. And we've raised our son here. We have one son who graduated from CSU Pueblo a few years back. He was a football player, was on scholarship down there, and got his business degree. So he is working in the Arvada area in insurance, and we're awfully proud of him. So a little bit about me. I'm not a politician. I'm a truck driver. I've never run for anything in my life. I'm a truck driver. I'm a retired law enforcement officer, and currently I'm training tractor trailer driving instructor down at Weebridge, where I teach veterans and general public a new job skill so they can re-enter the workforce. My 3 major platforms that I'm running on are pushback on our sanctuary county policies here in Jefferson County, because I think they're bad for the county and I think they're going to bankrupt us. We see the amount of money that Denver is spending on these programs, and I want to see Jefferson County move in a different direction. The other thing being law enforcement, I want to support our Jefferson County Sheriff's Office, and I want to make sure that we do something about the crime that we're all seeing here in Colorado and specifically here in Jefferson County. A few years back, nobody knew what a catalytic converter was. Now everybody knows what it is because they're being stolen all the time, among other crimes that we're seeing. And lastly, I want to save our taxpayer bill of rights. I believe that the county that has refunds that are due to the property owners should go back to the property owners. The last session did give us a bit of relief at the state level. And now here in Jefferson County, the money that's owed to us is being put on the ballot to just take it back. So I think the affordability here and the inflation that we're seeing, a big cause of that is government spending. So I'm here to reduce that and see if we can make groceries, housing, fuel, and everything else a little cheaper for us, because right now it's getting worse and worse. So those are my 3 major platforms. When speaking of these platforms, I think they should be addressed with common sense, some hard work, and some compassion. And I'm here to tell you where my compassion lies. My compassion is for the taxpayers here of Jefferson County. The people that have to pay their bills every month and they're asked to pay for somebody else's. My compassion also lies for the young family just starting off who sees that property ownership here in Colorado and Jefferson County, their dream of home ownership is next to impossible. And lastly, the retirees of Jefferson County, the people that have worked hard and built this county who are living on fixed incomes and seeing their budget stretched month after month, that's where my compassion lies. So I believe we need to take care of the taxpayers first. And then once we get that in line, we have plenty of money left over to take care of everybody else. But right now, it's taxpayers first. So those are my three major platforms. I thank you for inviting me, and I look forward to any questions you might have. Thank you.
That's alphabet? By group. Oh.
Well, hello, everybody. I'm Rachel Zenzinger, and I'm running for Jefferson County Board of Commissioners, District 1. We are grouped by district, although I will note that we are elected countywide. So you have to be from an area, but we will be elected by the entire county. Who am I? Many of you already know me because I have a long history of serving in this community, but just very briefly, I will touch a little bit on my background for those that are not familiar. I did grow up in the western part of Colorado in a very large family. I have 8 brothers and sisters, and I moved to the Front Range to attend college at Regent University. I am a teacher with an extensive background in education and in particular school finance. I live here in Arvada with my husband and my 2 college-age children from a previous marriage, and they have flown the nest as they are both at college right now, and I'm enjoying my little empty nest. I have a long history of public service, including being twice elected to the Arvada City Council and serving as its mayor pro tem, as well as you know, a term limited Colorado State Senator. I am running for county commissioner to deliver real results to the people of Colorado and in particular to the county of Jefferson. I have a proven track record of delivering on issues that people care about most. In this last legislative session, I sponsored 102 bills, which was a legislative record, and some of those bills were very big. For example, the $40 billion budget. I also sponsored a bill that fully funded our schools for the first time since 2008. But some of those bills were actually kind of boring and are not going to make headlines because they were about getting things done, focusing on the policies that people care about most, keeping the lights on, making sure that we're delivering appropriate services, and making sure that our government works for everybody in the state. The policies that average people depend on. Now, this is the type of results-oriented leadership that I'm hoping to bring to the Jefferson County Board of Commissioners. However, I believe that this campaign is not just about delivering results. It's also how we deliver those results. It's about getting the job done in the most collaborative and inclusive way possible. Many years ago, in my very first campaign, I ran on the 3 E's, which was education, the economy, and the elderly. But this campaign, I believe, is less about issues and it's more about values. Issues will come and go and our needs will change. But how we approach those issues and the manner in which we achieve them are as equally as important. So I am running on the 3 C's: collaboration, commitment, and courage. First, I believe that collaboration is the cornerstone of democracy. And I've garnered a reputation at the Capitol and even on the City Council as being someone who strives for collaboration. I believe that we can achieve better policies when we are working together and when we are inclusive of diverse ideas. I had a 100% bipartisan record 8 out of the 9 sessions that I served in the legislature. And this year, I had 1 bill out of the hundreds of bills that did not receive a Republican vote. I am very committed to collaboration. Secondly, commitment. When I say that I'm committed to the people of Jefferson County, I guarantee that you can count on my unwavering, persistent dedication to getting the job done and finding solutions, even when it is difficult, and even if we may disagree. And lastly, courage. Just because I strive to be collaborative doesn't mean that I lay down and give up on those things that I believe to be right. I believe that an effective leader must have the courage to push boundaries, to resist groupthink, and to protect those values that everybody cherishes, democracy. I'm Rachel Zenzinger. You can learn more about me and my campaign on my website, which is rachelforcolorado.com. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here today, and I look forward to your questions.
We have County Commissioner District 2 candidates, and Andy, you are up first.
Great, thank you. So good to see everyone today. My name is Andy Kerr. I'm a Jefferson County Commissioner. I represent District 2, as Rachel mentioned. We each come from a district, but we all run county-wide. And I will be running for re-election this year and would appreciate your support. As with Rachel, as she mentioned that she has served this community for quite a while. I too have a track record of public service. I did most of my growing up here in Jefferson County, as did my wife. In fact, she grew up her entire school career here in Arvada, graduating from Arvada High School. And my kids, our 3 kids, are actually 3rd generation Jeffconians. I might have just made up that word, but they can trace their roots quite a ways back here in Jefferson County. As many of you know, I too am a school teacher. School teachers seem to be kind of especially a social studies teacher, seem to be kind of a big deal in politics these days. It's about time, I would say. Many folks ask, how did I end up getting into politics? And I was nicely doing my job at school. And as a social studies teacher, I had challenged all of my students that in a democracy, everybody needs to participate. Not everyone needs to run for office, not everyone needs to run a campaign, but everyone needs to participate and everyone needs to step up to where they're comfortable. And after challenging my students that for years and years, my house seat was open, and so I stepped up to model that to my students. I have served since 2006 in public office, first in the House and then in the Senate. It's actually Rachel and I did serve in the Senate together for a few years. And at that same time, Colorado is wonderful in that when you're serving in the legislature, you really do need to keep your other job as well. So you get to do both. So I'm actually a retired 25-year teacher from Jefferson County Schools, card carrying JCA member for all of those 25 years as well. I think it's really important as we hear people talk about qualifications. You know, if you go to the dentist, you want to find a dentist with experience. If you go to the doctor, you want to find a doctor with experience. If you want good policy done, you want to find somebody who has experience in passing good policy. I brought a prop. I don't know if those are in the rules, but this is a Governor Jared Polis signing pen. I carried many hundreds of bills too in my time in the legislature. And when you get good policy passed, the governor signs it and hands you the pen. Well, some people doing the math are like, Andy, your term in the legislature didn't overlap with Governor Polis. Correct, I was gone the year before he became governor. But I was well known, and I think maybe some of you actually came and testified. Every year I ran the full day kindergarten bill, year after year after year. After having 3 kids and us paying for that full day kindergarten each year, I knew how important it was to the working families. Year after year, couldn't quite get it over the finish line. Governor Polis's first year, he was able to make sure that bill got passed. And I was invited to the signing ceremony and given an emeritus pen. But I just want to show that that's the type of people that we need making policy in our county, in our leadership, is people who have the experience of making good policy that really impact the working families in our neighborhoods. Andy Kerr, District 2 County Commissioner. Thank you.
Next, we have our senior region, oh, sorry, Natalie, I'm sorry, see my memory.
Hello, my name is Natalie Menten, and I'm very pleased to be here with you today. I want to talk about the work that I've done in public policy. What I believe at the end of the day is the more money that you can keep in your pocket, the better your life will be. The more you will be able to self-sustain and determine your future. So with that work over the last 2 to 3 decades, what I focused on was legislation that puts more power in the citizen's pocket, more money in their pocket, and the way those two equate. And I'll give some examples. One of the passions that I've had for a long time is Colorado open records laws, called CORA. And what that does is really keeps our government's business right in front of us so that we're able to participate, because our participation is actually very, very vital. Over those years, I've worked on increasing and promoting and defending our open records laws in the state of Colorado. That includes work passing legislation that would require governments to post their check registers online. Now, why is that important? One, it gives us the confirmation of how our taxpayer money is spent, but it also reduces inefficiencies in government by creating an open bidding process so contractors can reduce the cost of supplies, labor, the things that governments buy. It also includes making sure government conversations occur in the public eye. I can say this last year, we took a hit down in the state capitol, the Senate Bill 157, which said that certain government meetings between elected officials can be closed off to the public. I've worked a long time to fight against those type of things so that we, the citizens, can become engaged. It's hard enough to attend the meetings at the Capitol and attend the 9 a.m. board hearings with government if those meetings are closed off. How do I put more money into your pocket? I'll give an example locally. I live in Lakewood. Repealing the grocery tax in Lakewood. I feel that's a very regressive tax that hits those on a lower income very, very hard. Let me expand on that a little bit. As a future county commissioner in Jefferson County, I would push for a redefining what is food within our state statutes. Because at this point in time, we have the government taking millions of dollars out of the pockets of citizens when that literally is food being taken off their table. There should be no difference between food for home consumption, which is generally what grocery taxes are considered, a banana, a package of chicken, a bag of carrots. Beyond that, we also tax right now at full level food for immediate consumption. Now, maybe people want to think about that as the steak that they go buy at the store and they've got a deep pocket and they can afford it. But food for immediate consumption also affects the janitor who is going to Subway sandwiches and buy a quick sub in between the 2 to 3 part-time jobs that they have. But our government is taxing those. I would want to be a liaison between Jefferson County and the state of Colorado to redefine that. The state has an excess of money redefining food. Will put 7 to 10 more days of food on people's table. We can't have the government literally stealing food from a child, but that is the way it works right now. Let me talk about some other things. Property taxes. Been long into this dense subject, but at the end of the day, there was a negotiation down at the Capitol and I went to those hearings in person, watching what was going on. Right now, we have far too many people in our community who are house rich and income poor. And they are in danger of stress, financial stress upon their life unless we correct these things. Now, I can say Jefferson County did not follow statute, in my opinion, on lowering the taxes that were charged to property tax owners. Instead, taking that money from them, stressing them out, and then relying on a ballot issue, which is not portrayed accurately. That's taking money out of citizens' pockets. In the future, I look forward to defending citizens keeping more money in their pockets. That includes tenants, owners, and consumers. I have a history to prove it. Legislation's been passed. I would appreciate your vote. My name is Natalie Menten, and I really do look forward to talking to you a little bit later.
Senior Eric Rinard.
Hello everyone. My name is Eric Rinard. It's nice to be here. Thank you very much, Joyce, for inviting me. For your persistence and getting me to say yes. I'm a Colorado immigrant. My parents moved to Denver when I was 2. My dad took a job teaching at the University of Denver. And I grew up in the Washmark neighborhood and went to Denver public schools until I graduated from South High and went to CU Boulder and got my electrical engineering degree. I spent a year in Texas and there were no mountains, so I came back. Spent about the next 20 years in Boulder, and then I met my wife who had horses, and we needed less expensive land to keep those horses on, so we moved to Weld County, near Titone, Fort Upton area, and I've been there for just over 12 years. So, I've lived all my life pretty much in Colorado. I've visited every corner of the state. And I consider myself to be a classic Coloradan. Foremost, I think that we all respect our freedoms. I've been registered as a Republican since I was first able to vote. Voted for Ronald Reagan's second term. But I changed my registration to Democrat so that I could vote in the primary for Midnight North Campbell. And he won the primary and then won the election, and after that he changed to parties and became a Republican. So that's when I switched back also. I was never involved in politics my entire life until my attitude was I'll leave government alone if government leaves me alone. And in 2010, somebody became president and wanted to fundamentally transform America. So the Tea Party movement was a reaction to that, and as a result of that, in 2012, I volunteered with the Weld County Republican Party. And it didn't take long before, not a lot of volunteers, I became the secretary of the Weld County Republicans. I also never thought I would run for an elective office, but 2 years ago, there was an opening for CU Regent for the 8th Congressional District. It's a brand new district. When I decided to run, I thought it was going to be an open seat, but it turns out there was another Republican registered and he won the primary. It was a close election. I think it might have hurt me a little bit in the Republican primary that one of the candidate websites ranked my political positions as least liberal. Not quite sure where they got that, but I am a libertarian type of Republican. The reason I got involved in politics and at that time is I felt like the Republicans were losing elections when they had all the right ideas on everything except social issues. So I wanted to try to push down the Republican intensity and insistence on all the social issues and focus on just good governance. So why am I running for CU? The University of Colorado is an excellent system. I'm very proud to be an alumni from there. And but when I was on campus, even in the 80s, I pretty much stayed to the east side of campus. I took as few of the social humanistic electives as I could. I didn't go to the west side of campus very much.
course, when I graduated, then I became interested in history and literature. And then I wanted to read, but, there's no secret that college faculties tend to lean left. For 40 years, the CU Board of Regents was a Republican majority board until 2020. And at that time, it switched to a Democrat majority. And I think that it's important that there be some counterbalance to the liberal thought on campus. I don't actually like using the word, but I consider myself a liberal in a classical sense. And so I think that I can help to provide some critical thinking and a challenge to the orthodoxy on campus as a Republican student. One of the things that drives me as a guiding principle, I call myself a little R Republican. Everyone talks about preserving our democracy, which is fantastic, but not enough people talk about preserving our republic. The republic, I'm a little R Republican, and you know, a republic means that if the government power is limited and that individuals have rights that cannot be infringed and are free to live as citizens. And this idea began with the Magna Carta in 1215, and it was codified in the Constitution, and it's also talked about in this book by Bastian called The Law, which I hope you'll ask me a question about because my time's up. Thank you.
Our next person up is Lisa Feret. She's running for House District 24.
All right, thank you, everyone. Excuse my tardiness. I actually was at a fundraiser of my friend. She's running Comeback Yoga. It's a veterans organization that does yoga for veterans. And it's very hard to balance having any sort of personal life and also political life these days. So I appreciate your flexibility in that. My name is Lisa Feret. I was formerly Lisa Smith. Then I got married, had a kid last year. And so I switched my name over to Lisa Feret. I'm your current Arvada City Councilwoman. Love the job. I got elected a couple of years ago, and it's been just a delight to be a part of the Arvada community and a policy lens. So one of the first things that I did when I first got here actually was join APA with the housing team over with Mindy, and we discussed a lot around housing policy and what we can do. And I remember us putting together a housing committee idea, and we actually wrote it all out, had all the rules and everything, and submitted it to the city, and they're like, thanks. And they put it on the shelf, and it never went anywhere. And so it really frustrated me, and that is actually the catalyst of why I wanted to run, was because I felt like I wasn't listened to just as an average constituent. And so I ran and I got elected, and the first thing that I did was submit the exact same document and said, hey, how about a housing committee? And now we have a housing committee, and we are just steamrolling forward around affordable housing issues. And so I'm really excited about that. So I really do appreciate the work that APA does. And even if you don't agree on every single policy issue, you can find a commonality and go for it. So I really appreciate that. My background, I was military police for 4 years, and then I transitioned to become a social worker. A lot of people, when I tell them that I was military, they say, you know, you must be super patriotic. In actuality, I came from a very broken home, and I needed to get out, and I needed to have some sort of security, some sort of right and left barriers to help keep me straight. If I went to college, I probably would have lost a scholarship and partied too hard. So I actually joined the military for that structure, and that was great. It awarded me a great opportunity to get out of my home and experience something new and get an education and really give back. And I'm very grateful for it, even though it was a struggle to do the 4 years there. After that, I became a social worker. I became a case manager. I did elderly, blind, disabled people, low-income families. That was really my target audience. I did that for a couple of years, and I really burnt out. I think a lot of people, if you talk into the healthcare or social work industries, you just burn out. It's exhausting. You want to help families that want to help themselves, but a lot of times the programs and the policies that we create keep them poor and keep them in systems that they don't want to be a part of. There's a lot of people that I had served that were in affordable housing units that didn't want to be there anymore. They wanted to be on their own, but because of the way we create policy, 2 minutes already? All right, because of the way that we create policy, it inhibits them from forward progression.
So I feel like it's important to have people that have served in the trenches around policy, or around, low-income, elderly, disabled people to understand what works and what doesn't work when it comes to policy. So what I really want to bring to the table is just that unique lens as a social worker, as someone that's come from broken families of addicts and really just mental health issues throughout my family. I think that it's important to have people that have served on the ground, that have experienced these traumatic events to create that policy that can help support those families. So that's really what I'm focused on. If I'm going to drill down a little bit more, I know I got like a minute left. So housing, healthcare, and public policy. And public policy also, or sorry, public safety. Public safety also includes climate. I think we don't actually put those together, but that's actually really important to tie together. When you have a resilient community, you have a safe community. And I think that's really important to drill down on. So not just supporting our first responders, but also supporting policies and programs and funding that help with fire mitigation, with flood mitigation. You know, we want to make sure that we have a resilient community. So when that inevitable fire or flood comes, because it is coming, we are ready as a community. How do we educate? How do we make sure that we're prepared? And I think that's really important. So I have lots to say, I have a lot of opinions, but I'm almost out of time. So I will wrap up. My name is Lisa Feret, and I am at lisaforcolorado.com if you want more information on it.
Brianna Titone, who is running in House District 27. She also serves our now.
Introduction, right?
Yep, introduction, and what you're gonna do.
All right, yeah. Well, thank you, and I also apologize for being late. I was doing some campaign videos and photos, and volunteers were not exactly on time. So I'm Brianna Titone. I have been the state rep for District 27 for the last 6 years. I'm running for my final term in office this time around. And it's really to continue a lot of the work that I've done and what you kind of know about me already. I ran for office to begin with because the guy I went to go visit at the Capitol wouldn't talk to me when I went to go visit him. And I was very off put by that. I thought that somebody who should be representing the people should always give the courtesy to talk to someone who comes to visit them at the Capitol. That's pretty basic, but it's about really doing the work of the people, right? And I think we've kind of forgotten about what that means a lot. Someone told me on my third time running for office, they told me, "You're still the same person you were the first time you ran for office." That's a very big compliment for me, because it's hard to stay true with what you believe in a space that's really trying to change you and trying to get you to do the things that the system wants you to do. So a lot of things that you've seen me do over the years, I've done a lot with consumer protection, right to repair. We did an AI regulation bill this year. I've done a lot of HOA stuff. HOA stuff is pretty nasty business, and I'm gonna keep trying to chip away at that issue and keep raising that up, because we need to make some fundamental changes in that. When I look at housing, and housing, it comes up a lot, and that's why HOAs are really important to housing. We talk a lot about building housing. And I know that there's a community here north of Old Town that is on the verge of condemnation. It's not gonna be habitable. Some developer's gonna buy it, and all of those homes are gonna be bulldozed and probably a big expensive place to put up. So we build houses that are affordable, but we lose housing that is affordable. We don't have anything to show for it. We have zero. So we need to really think very clearly about how we can make housing that is here now and maintain that into the future, to make sure that people's investments don't go down the tubes. And HOA is a very big problem with that. I also actually have been talking a lot about wildfire. My district now extends way out into the mountains of Jefferson County, into Golden. pre-evacuation zone of the Marshall Fire. I've been working on a lot of things with other legislators about how can we give people the power to empower themselves to do better with protecting their homes. And there's a lot of other things that we can do also with the rising cost of insurance. Insurance is a huge issue with folks who are trying to do housing. It passes on to people who rent, and it's a systemic problem across the state. That's something that I believe we can make some progress in to help reduce the risk of not just our communities here, but communities across the state. That's a big issue, and I think that's a bigger win than lowering people's property taxes by a couple $100. So what we have a special session to do. And the other thing that I've been really trying to focus on, at least this year, is moving the needle on some of the more of the consumer protections and giving people the opportunity to get to where they need to be. And there's a lot of people who say that registrations are not being paid. They're driving around without paying their car registration, and that is putting a burden on people who are using the roads. If you go use the road, you have to do it. And look, it's expensive, and it's expensive because of the crazy tax system we have. We have to get the money from someplace. We have to put that burden on the place where it needs to be. And people can't afford that. So we're looking at a way to help people get caught up and be able to afford it. So that way, everybody who's using the roads can pay for those roads. And nobody has to feel like, well, if they're not gonna pay for it, I'm not gonna pay for it. Because that's a slippery slope that we're on right now. And we need to even the playing field to get people caught up. So thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Now comes the really. Everybody wants to ask questions. So I'm going to start with the county commissioners because it's the most people we have. And we kind of have a theme running here. So I'm going to try to put a couple of these questions together. So we're going to start with, let's see. Charlie had to go first, at least on his.
It's hard to hear you back here.
Okay, okay.
She's just thinking out loud right now.
Okay, here's the first question, and it will be for the county commissioners. And the way this is gonna work is, even though people have put a particular person's name on it, every commissioner gets 90 seconds to answer this question. So we're gonna start with Natalie Menten. And I'll call on the next people. So the question is, Jeffco's revenue tabor cap has not grown to account for population growth since '92. There's all sorts of new issues like cybersecurity. So if ballot issue 1A, which is what's called the revenue retention bill, fails, what will you cut? And how would you protect the issues that you have talked about that are most important to you? Does that make sense?
I'm gonna start with the first assertion that was made there. The taxpayers' bill of rights is in place so that government grows at a local level like Jeffco by inflation plus local growth. That's construction. So the government under the taxpayers' bill of rights is allowed reasonable growth. That's a pretty good measurement in my opinion. If it is allowed to grow faster than your income, it is not sustainable. So tabor provides reasonable caps. And so I don't think there's a discussion about as much about cutting as defining how tabor protects us. But when we look at efficiencies in Jefferson County, there are plenty to be found. And I don't think I have the time within this limit to expand upon that. Oh, I've got 30 seconds left. Let's start with the vast amount of those who are in, let's call it, those who especially hold a lot of wisdom. And those would be folks in a certain age group and above. Experience, many of them are volunteers, whether it's one org or another. There's a state program right now where seniors could be working in the property tax work-off program. They donate their time, they get a credit on time is up. I hope I can talk about that more.
Okay, Andy, you're next.
Great, thank you. So, one of the things I'll say about, Tabor and at the local level, Tabor sets some arbitrary, formula that from 1992 that, doesn't account for technology, doesn't account for economic growth, doesn't account for population growth. Yes, we heard that it's inflation, plus construction. It doesn't account for population growth. As current county commissioner, a year or two ago, I asked our budget people, can you see how much money was spent per person in Jefferson County by the county government, say 20, 25 years ago, and how much now? 20, 25 years ago, the county was spending approximately $53 per person in services, plowing your roads, constructing your roads, things like that. Currently, the county is spending somewhere in the range of $41, $42 per person on all those services. So when we talk about the revenue retention, services have to be cut. And just last week, the county commissioners were meeting with our departments, talking about where we are going to cut upwards of $26 million in county services if the revenue retention measure is not passed.
And Rachel, you're next.
Oh, I am? Okay. Thank you very much for the question. So, having served for 5 years on the Joint Budget Committee, and in particular, I was the chair of that committee, this is not theoretical to me. I have served and provided guidance on budgets in good times and in bad times. And for example, I was on the budget committee when we had to cut $3.3 billion from the state budget because of COVID. So here are some of the ideas that I just jotted down. First of all, I think we have to prioritize essential services. Number two, I think we have to stop hiring. We'd have to go through some sort of a hiring freeze, and I think that we probably would have to freeze any kind of steps or cost of living adjustments. I would say that we would probably have to do more deferred maintenance. I would look at trimming all of our discretionary spending, in particular grant programs, where we provide grants to the community for various things, including food assistance and whatnot. I would look into investing in more public-private partnerships and trying to increase collaboration with our municipalities so that we could perhaps achieve some savings. I would look at the way that we classify our revenue sources in the county budget, and then I would look at eliminating some of our state revenue sources because those count towards our revenue cap. And then lastly, I would invest in someone, a grant writer perhaps, that could look at obtaining more federal resources. And then lastly, we don't do this job alone. As county commissioners, we rely on our departments. And so I would ask for them to come up with ideas for how they would cut 10% from their departments.
Yes, thank you. I'm glad to hear that we're talking about cuts because usually it's always a revenue problem, it's never a spending problem. So thank you for that. There's two areas that I would not touch, and that will be our sheriff's office and our roads and bridges. I think it's reasonable to ask all departments to look at their budgets. I'd like to put together a committee to see if we could ask each department to do a budget to cut 1 to 2% in their spending and take a look at it. We should do an assessment of what is essential items, and we should go from there. I think our differences in my opponents and myself is I'm more about small government. I think the 9 words that we hear that I'm from the government, I'm here to help is usually the wrong way of doing things. And I think no offense to anybody on this panel, but 102 bills coming out of the legislation is probably 102 too many. So, that's some of the things I would do, and I hope I have your support.
Thank you. All right, this question is for Eric as our city regent candidate. Guns on campus are a huge issue in school life now. What will you do as CU regent to protect students from gun violence?
Well, the first thing I would not do is ban guns on campus. Because legally carried guns are a deterrent to illegal gun use. One of the reasons that shooters go to schools and public buildings and campuses is because they know they are very unlikely to be opposed until the police can arrive. So I have a concealed carry permit, and I think there's something like 300 million guns in the country, and I think there's a website of concealed carry permit holders who have committed crimes. I think there's 2 that have done that nationwide. If I get a little bit of time left, I spent too much time talking about my biography a little bit in my earlier speech. I'm also running on a campaign platform of 3 C's like Rachel. My C's are competence, cooperation, and common sense.
Thank you. And this question is for our General Assembly candidates, Lisa and Brianna. We'll have Brianna go first. It has come to my attention that the popular plastic bag ban at grocery stores that has saved lots of plastic waste in the state is a topic about being reversed. Can you speak about that initiative?
First time I'm hearing about that. Well, I mean, I think that the plastic bag ban hasn't caused a lot of problem other than people not having their little trash cans in their house have a plastic bag in it that they have to go out and buy, which I guess is an unfortunate side effect. But I think what we are seeing a lot less of are these bags flying around our neighborhoods. You know, Layton Rock is in my neighborhood, and it's right next to the landfill. And you know what comes out of that landfill very easily are a lot of plastic bags, and you see them on fences all over the place. So the amount of complaining that I've heard that they don't have a bag when you go to the grocery store, I'm not hearing that. I'm not hearing anybody really complaining about it. It's just like, it happened, people were like irked, and now they moved on and they bring a bag or they buy a bag if they need it. I don't know what this initiative is or how it's being led, if it's a ballot initiative people are getting signatures for. But I think people have moved on from this. I don't think this is an issue anymore that people really care about. And I don't really see it really getting any legs or flying for that matter.
I think that we're focusing on the wrong climate policy when we're talking about bags. I think that it's great that we've changed over to it. And actually, to your point, people that use plastic bags for their, bathroom bin, for example, when they buy it at the store, it's actually 37% thicker than the plastic bag. So there's a little bit of transition that we need to work on in terms of like the thickness of the plastic, but that's in the weeds. I would say that if we're gonna look at climate policy, I don't think that bags is the focus. I think it's food waste. That is that's a big area for me. My sister does food waste policy in Massachusetts, and I just see it myself. Right now, our Coloradans waste 37% of their food. That's crazy. That's the equivalent of 42 coal plants running every day. So I think that that's where we need to focus. So, while I appreciate that we transitioned away from plastic bags, and I see people coming in and out with their reusable bags, and that's great. I think that we really need to focus on the food waste. That is a double win. Not only are we helping the climate, but we're also helping people that need food. So we need to really focus on reallocating our food and focusing on some of that food policy that would be specific. That would be my specific climate policy thing. If I have 10 seconds left, I would just want to put a fun fact. You have to reuse your bag 367 times, give or take, depending on your the actual bag, to have a climate neutral reusable bag. So the material and the actual process of actually making it is 367 times.
Thank you. Okay, now I'm gonna go back around this way. So again, General Assembly question. What are your thoughts about the compromise special session that removed initiatives 50 and 108 that in the second part of this question ended up giving a big tax break to wealthy landowners? So Lisa, you're up.
I feel like you might know the nitty gritty on this one, but overall, I think that the spirit of democracy is that of compromise. So the fact that we are able to come together and figure out a compromise is good. The nuances of it where you're giving more wealthy write-off, I think that that's not very fair. You know, I think we need to look at how we're distributing the tax write-offs in those initiatives, but overall, I would say I appreciate that we are able to find a compromise instead of taking something to the ballot that could have been passed, that could have really been detrimental to a lot of our social service programs and a lot of our public safety programs. So in the spirit of compromise, I appreciate it. I feel like maybe when I'm a legislator, I want to appreciate going back into special session, but I think that it is probably, it's good that we were able to come back to the table and find that. I think we could have probably done a little bit better, but I don't know the details of it, so I'll pass it over to my hopefully future colleague.
Well, I mean, I'm not gonna back off on what I had said on the House floor. If you missed it, I said it was a fecal sandwich because I didn't want to say the other way. It wasn't the fault of leadership and everyone to compromise. 50 and 108 were absolutely a complete disaster. And they were extorting us to do this thing that we had to make fit their needs. That's an unelected people were telling us how to do our job. And I have a big problem with that. And yes, came up with this compromise solution, but it was mustard on a turd sandwich is what we ended up getting. The relief that we gave people was not a meaningful package of relief. We could have given a lot of things to people who really needed it, but that wasn't what was in the cards for the people with the gun to our head to do it. And I'm very passionate about this because this kind of thing is going to happen again and again and again, and it has happened again and again, and we're just continuing to do it. And we have to stop it from happening because the process of direct democracy, where it does have its merits for getting things on the ballot, it's being abused by people with lots of money to be able to do what they want and serve their needs, and that does not help people. We can do a lot of things in that building that can help real people with real relief, and we're not doing it because we have to give away the money that we would give that stuff to for these kinds of things.
Exactly.
Your Regent question. How would you ensure that history, literature, music, art, and the like are supported as well as science and engineering and football? That's my whole issue.
Well, speaking of football, that's probably not a good time to talk about after last night's game. But, yeah, I think I read recently that, Deion Sanders got a $50,000 bonus check this summer, and it was because it was a percentage of how much extra money he brought into the university. I think I heard during the game, $100 million came into Boulder as a city since Deion has been there. But back to the subjects, I think I mentioned that I was not interested in history and literature when I was a student, but they are very important. I mean, I'm a strong believer in a liberal arts education. In 4 years, you can't really get as much education as I would like to as a student. I think that all those departments are very well funded. They have, faculty boards that help control all that. The regents do have, say over financial matters. But I don't think that there is a move on campus to benefit, one side of campus over the other or to make any changes there. It's basically just to have more critical thinking and less, just acceptance without criticism. Skepticism is a key part of science, of all the sciences. And there was a time in the history of mankind when everybody knew that the earth was the center of the universe. So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, this is a county commissioner candidate question, and we'll start with Andy when I've read the question. Even though issues and needs do change, what do you see as the most urgent issues at stake for Jeffco in this moment that will most affect Jeffco into the future, and how will you prioritize these issues if you're elected?
Thank you. So I think you take the word Jeffco out and say the world. I think the single largest issue facing the world is climate change. I think in Jefferson County, affordable housing, wildfire danger, those are some immediate present issues that we need to deal with, and are both completely impacted by climate change and not addressing climate change enough. I think our budget issues and our revenue retention fit in as well. And let me explain how. Affordable housing, and everyone talked about things that we might need to cut. Affordable housing is not an essential service of a county government, but I think it is absolutely critical in this day and age. So if we want to cut budgets, the sheriff takes up 40% of our general fund. The sheriff is state mandated to have a jail, but it's not an essential service to have co-responders and navigators, things that we all know help impact our public safety.
And Rachel?
Oh, okay. So I agree with Andy. There are a lot of issues that I could talk about, ranging from affordable housing to the cost of living. But I think that the greatest problem that Jefferson County is facing right now, particularly in the mountain and the foothills area, but not exclusively, would be around the threat of wildfire. I can't really solve for this problem as a county commissioner, but we can make sure that we're implementing smart strategies so that we are addressing the issue when it comes up. So, for example, I have 4 different ideas about how we might tackle this issue as a county. First and foremost, I think that Jefferson County should continue their involvement with the Wildfire Commission. We literally have a seat at the table right now, and we are leading on this issue, and I think that Jefferson County needs to maintain that leadership and work in that space, because that's what's going to lead to greater collaboration. Second, I think that we must write and successfully implement strategic forest management plans, as well as our community wildfire protection plan, and that those need to be regularly updated, and that we need to make sure that they are financially supported. Next, I think that we need to ensure that the county is in a stable place financially to be able to properly resource our planning, mitigation, and post-response efforts. And finally, I think that we all know that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So I think that we need to make sure that we have robust citizen engagement and education efforts to ensure that every Jeffco resident is prepared in the event of a wildfire.
And Charlie?
Thank you. In terms of the budgets, we talk about the increase in population may not have been calculated. We don't talk about the population that has come in that we're not accounting for. We need to look at the cost of illegal immigration here in Jefferson County. I believe we need to push back on these policies so taxpayers can get a relief paying for things, for people that haven't contributed. I agree with the fire mitigation. One thing on all those answers is always government based. I would do something to help the citizens who live in those areas. In the fire overlay in the west of the foothills, where it's required. We saw what happened to the Marshall Fire, where homes were affected east of that. So it's not just for our mountain communities. I would suggest we have a fire mitigation plan to give tax rebates back to homeowners in those areas if they meet certain qualifications. Not only will it help our fire mitigation, but it will bring some tax relief to the taxpayers.
Thank you. Let me be clear, when the phrase is used, revenue retention, that is a phrase that was conceived by a political operative hired by the county using our public money to the tune of $300,000, and really, which was a very suspect contract to start with. And they wordsmithed it, revenue retention. What does the issue do, JEFCO 1A? And we just talked about a special session. I wish that question had actually come over to the county commissioners because it really does apply. Ballot issue 1A not only says, can we keep the money that they overcharged property owners, it also eliminates the property tax cap. So we get that big special session, and now JEFCO wants to get rid of the cap. So we're gonna be back to the problem that we've got. They don't want to talk about that. So efficiencies need to be found. But let me talk about a second issue, the wildfire. There's a plan right now been circulated for months about Together JEFCO, which will expand the wildfire urban interface to, I think I've heard now, 90% of Jefferson County. If that occurs for an unknown reason, there will be more people unable to get insurance. This is an issue that's first and foremost those two things.
Right. We have a CU Regent question again. I did get everybody in. CU is the biggest college system in Colorado. College prices have been rising exponentially. What will you do as Regent to help college be more affordable?
This is probably the number one question for every Regent candidate, and it's also the number one issue for every college student and parent of a college student. The problem is that there are so many factors affecting, driving the cost of college education. I would say that from what I've seen, Colorado is among the lowest cost of major state universities in the country. The regents that are on the board now and in past years have done a very good job of controlling costs. Administration has been reduced. I think that there are some things that can be done to help students. One would be to expand the 4-year tuition rate guarantee that's offered on the board campus only, to offer that in Colorado Springs and Denver as well. And I think that it would also be beneficial for students to have some budgeting assistance. Any student who gets student loan disbursement, and anyone else who wants it, frankly, free budgeting assistance from the university to help them manage their expenses. A lot of times they're paying more for things than they need to, just because they don't know what their options are. Yeah, I remember when I graduated, I told you I graduated from South High in 1985. My dad gave me a check for $485. I said, why this strange amount? He said, that's your first semester's tuition.
Thank you. Yeah. All right, General Assembly candidates. What do you think is the biggest issue facing Coloradans today?
Well, I spent a couple hours at the door this morning, and the universal 100% answer was housing and homelessness. That was hands down the issue. Not specifically, I can't afford to live here, but more so, what are my children gonna do? And there's homeless people all around me, and I think that is the big theme I am seeing at the doors and on the phones, hands down 100%. So with that, I think we need to look at how we structure our housing programs and our housing support programs. That's really important for us to recognize. We should build affordable housing units, but if you create a system that if you have a voucher and you can only stay there and you can't get out of it, they won't leave and there won't be room for people to come and join that affordable housing unit when they need it. So I think we really need to look at is how do we transition people and how do we have supportive transitional housing to get people to learn financial literacy, to get those certificates so they can eventually be able to house themselves and be on their own and then open up those spaces for people that are experiencing some sort of crisis or trauma. So that is a big area in which I experience as a case manager is that while I think it's really great that we have housing and homeless services, we also need to look at that transitional point of how do we get those people to the self-sufficiency in a meaningful way so they don't fall back into those cracks and into those needs again.
Well, a couple weeks ago, we had a special session and we exacerbated a major problem that we had. And we talked about wildfire as being a major problem. And what we did in the special session was take away a lot of revenue from the special districts, including those fire districts, which will not get the revenue going forward that they need to continue to provide services, whether that is fire or ambulance in some cases. That is going to cause a lot of problems, not just for resources not getting to people on time when they have a fire or a medical emergency, but the cost of insurance as well. So now we're going to make fighting fires harder and we're going to make it more costly for people because the insurance is going to go up because the fire department can't do their job. So this is a problem we need to fix as a result of what we just did a couple weeks ago. And that is an issue that I'm going to be taking up with some of my colleagues to try to help fix the problem that we created. In addition to that, fixing the problem with insurance in general. We have a huge issue with insurance going up across the board everywhere. And it's not something that we cannot solve. Insurance companies want to reduce their risk. We want to reduce our prices. If we can help reduce our risk individually, we help them reduce their risk, they should be able to reduce their cost to us. Everybody wins, and that's something that we're going to be working with the Division of Insurance on and build.
Next we have some county commissioner questions again. Okay, housing rents and home prices are so high in Colorado, we are losing our essential services workers. Like handymen and childcare providers. Do you support more regulation on corporate landlords? And let's see, we will start with Regent.
Well, I would agree that affordable housing is a big deal here in Jefferson County, just for people who can't afford to own a home, but then also for people who are renting a home. I would say from the county commissioner level, we don't have the ability to be able to impact this at a legislative perspective as I once did down at the state legislature. When I was at the state legislature, I worked very singularly focused on the issue of affordability, in particular with affordable housing. I know that many people in this room came down and testified on behalf of bills that I sponsored in favor of trying to increase affordability. And so I would just say that through that experience that I've had down at the state capitol, I've managed to garner a lot of experience and background and relationships with people who affect our housing situation. So I would try to apply those skills. I can't necessarily make any impact on corporate landlords because that would have to be done at the state legislative level. But from a county perspective, I am a part of a group right now that is working called Jeffco Housing. This is an organization that was developed by the Colorado Gives Foundation, where they have significant leaders from across Jefferson County coming together to try and work on affordable housing strategies. where we can bring our communities together and work in tandem with one another at building synergies so that we can try and address this problem.
Charlie, your next.
Yes, that's a good question, and it's complicated. At the federal level, during COVID and these other, events that we've had, all we've done was spend. It's driven our interest rate up, through the roof, which is contributing to the unaffordability here. At a local level, state level, we talk about insurance. One of the things that they did at the state legislature is get involved in a FAIR program to where they pull money from the insurance companies to have a block of affordable insurance for both commercial and residential. So what does that do? Insurance companies, are not going to eat that cost. They're going to pass it off to everybody else. This was a plan based on a similar plan in California. It didn't work there. It's now working here. It's driving up our costs. When you buy a home and you lock in a fixed rate, and believe me, those homeowners are part of this affordability, and so are the properties that they rent to other people. They pass it off as well. When you lock in a fixed rate and yet your monthly bills go up, that has to be charged to the renters because they just can't afford to do it. So the more taxes, the more goes into escrow, the more it costs the landowner. Guess what? The more it costs the renters. So we should try and fix those things. And high density housing here in Arvada and other communities are not the answer. It's short-sighted and it's changing the landscape of what we see in beautiful Jefferson County.
Housing affordability, well, first of all, it starts with one of the components, how much are your property taxes? So not to skip past the obvious there, but the more, right now we've seen this divide. We've got mom and pop rental units. We also have large corporations. The more regulations that are passed on down, and I think what's specifically being asked about here is rent caps is one prime example, requiring to accept animals, and not having those prohibitions and things that are up to the landlord, the property owner's choice. The more that we increase those regulations, the more we are going to drive out mom and pop landlords. And what's going to come in is the big corporate landlords. The more that the state requires high density housing, the more likely they are to get the big corporate build outs. So the more regulations, the more the mom and pop is going to say, I've got a lot of risk here. The more that they're just going to say, this is not worth it. I'm going to sell the property. And who ends up owning it? A landlord that's out of Greenwood Village, and then you're lucky if they're even in the state. So I'm not sure where I'm seeing the regulations creating the positive change desired.
So when we talk about affordability and we talk density, when there is greater density, that automatically creates opportunity for affordability. The question also asked about corporate landlords. I think some other terms people have used in the past are slumlords. Let me give you a couple of examples. One that's in the news, actual national news right now out of Aurora. This is a manufactured, from right-wing social media, it's a manufactured crisis in an affordable housing area that folks have manufactured a crisis of crime, when in fact the crime that's happening is that the landlord of that place is treating their tenants so poorly. So yes, regulations would help in that situation. Let me give you another example of slumlords. You've heard of Douglas Bruce, wrote the Tabor back in '92. Triple felon. He has 3 felonies for being a slumlord. So yes, regulations can and do work.
Thank you. And I'm going to ask the same question to our General Assembly candidates, because it sounds like you have a different ability.
Yeah.
Yes, I will. Housing, rents and home prices are so high in Colorado, we are losing our essential service workers. Do you support more regulations on corporate landlords?
Yes. I mean, I think we really saw a big problem a few years ago when hedge funds were buying single family homes all over the place to rent, which was taking houses out of the market, which was making it less competitive, and they were paying all this money. That's something that we need to put the brakes on. I totally agree with Commissioner Kerr that there are still, I mean, Colorado has been historically one of the most landlord-friendly places in the entire country. And that's why a lot of people have come here to set up shop to rent out places for people. And now we have like this other big political thing happening for it. We have to hold people accountable for housing that it should be habitable. We've done laws on that. We have habitability of housing. We have to make sure that this essential service that people need is something that's not going to make them sick. It's not going to make them not able to work. It's not going to make them have the ability to actually pay their bills so they can pay the rent. It's an essential service that we have to do, and we have to make sure that the rules and regulations are upheld to be sure that the housing that we have, the housing that is available, is safe and usable for all those people to be able to live their lives.
Yes, I think that when we talk about housing affordability, it's not just about regulating corporate landlords. I think it's about how we approach housing development in general from the start. So I think that there's a lot of challenges around how we develop the process in which that they go through, some of the codes that changed, some of the permitting processes. I think there's a lot of room that we can improve to streamline some of that work. I know that I had just renovated an ADU in my back unit to have for my in-laws to come and live, and it was very hard to navigate. And I had talked to a lot of the contractors who were telling me that the codes are different in Arvada than they are in Lakewood, than they are in different places. And I think that there's some room for working together as a region to figure out how do we better streamline some of the processes that they go through in terms of getting the permits, getting the application through, getting those development contractors. So I think that has a huge impact of affordability. Now on corporate regulation for some of the landlords, I think that we do need some more regulation to make sure that it is safe and habitable. I think that is a huge challenge that we saw back east when I grew up in Connecticut and outside of New York. A lot of the landlords didn't upkeep their home because of rent control, and they didn't want to do anything differently. So I think that we need to look at some of the regulations on how we approach corporate landlords. So yes, I guess that's the short answer.
Okay, thank you. We are nearing the end, so I'm going to do one question more, and it's going to be for our senior regent.
To be the last.
Okay, and I do have, if the person who asked this question will clarify, the question is, how will you work towards higher education leadership that invites and includes the voices of the very diverse students and families CU serves? And I just want to make sure if you're talking about the students rather than the faculty. Okay, answer it from a student perspective, please.
That's actually an excellent question. I'm a strong opponent of equality. I'm not a fan of equity. And I think that diversity in the student body begins at the college preparation level. And I was fortunate enough to learn about a program that's going on in Colorado right now. There's 20 high schools around Colorado. All mostly up in the Front Range, but there are some on the western slope. It's called PTEC, Pathways in Technology and Early College High School. And it's a partnership between the school district, a local community college, and local industry and local companies in various different industries. And they give it up, the colleges And they all work together to pay the costs for high school students to be able to take college classes, 60 credit hours during their high school career. And the curriculum is designed so they can graduate in 4 years with an associate's degree in general studies. And so 30 of those hours are guaranteed transferred into any college. So that takes off at least 1 year of college, of an expensive 4-year college. You can go on then to a 4-year college in 2 or 3 years. It's really, and the other thing is that this program is targeted and aimed at catering to traditionally underserved populations. And so families that don't have college graduates for parents, and my daughters are, even though I was a college graduate, both my wife and I are, my kids are taking this at Frederick High School, and it's been fantastic. I'd like to see that expand to every high school.
And we have reached our time limit. If you have questions that were asked that you submitted that were not asked, if you want to talk to these people and get their emails so that you can pose that question to them, that would be great. And stay tuned to our website, which is arvadansforprogressiveaction.org. We ask questionnaires of our candidates, and I will be nagging them, some of them again, who have not submitted. So check out the website and see what questions our members have and what their answers are. So thank you all for coming, and I really appreciate everyone's time on a Sunday afternoon. Thank you.
Yeah.